Private equity and venture capital have taken a more active approach to responsible investment. They've started to say, what actually could we do to improve this business that makes it a more valuable business, a more sustainable quality of earnings, the kind of things that create real financial value. And that's great to see. It's moving the agenda forward quite dramatically in recent years. More recently, a much more informed approach has come about, which is again connecting to PRI, the principles of responsible investment, where the general areas which limited partners and general partners need to explore when they're making their investment commitments are highlighted, but it's up to them to work out whether the environmental, social and governance disciplines of a business or a situation are up to their standard. Responsible investment has been central to the private equity approach since the beginning of private equity. That's something which sometimes we feel a little bit proud of in private equity, but it's also something where I think we have to be honest and say it's always been defensive responsible investment. It's been making sure there are no environmental leaks, or making sure in social issues, for example, there's no child labor in the supply chain, or in the areas of governance and good governance, making sure that there are not related party transactions that are not transparent and disclosed to everyone who's involved. All of those things keep private equity investors and the companies they invest in out of court, but they don't per se necessarily make those companies better companies. One of the interesting things of private equity industry as a whole is starting to raise itself to the challenge of how can we move the needle in making these companies better in terms of ESG or corporate social responsibility, or any combination of words that we want to describe responsible investment. We've moved from a defensive mindset to an aspiration around responsible investment. Put simply, responsible investing leads to better companies, and that leads to a better impact in society at large, from all of commerce and all of business, better impact all around. Responsible investment is more than just words. It has a real impact in economies and societies in which we operate. When private equity investors sit down with the companies that they're working with to say, have we done everything possible for the environment? Are we using energy efficiently? Are we switching off the factory lights in the evening? Making improvements in that area makes a real improvement in society at large, in that case, the environmental agenda. The same in social area. Work-life balance has for many, many years been talked about, and in so many businesses is only now being addressed with flexible working and a whole range of other more modern, more sustainable approaches to an engaged and constructive workforce. And one of the great things for private equity, one of the joys of being an investor in private equity, is when you start to make progress on a number of responsible investment fronts, the culture and the attitudes within a company becomes a happier place. And while I'm not sure we can measure happiness, it's certainly one thing that makes the private equity industry happy, is to see a positive culture and the quality of businesses and the quality of time that people have in businesses that have got their ESG agenda straight. There are a whole range of areas beyond the traditional environmental social governance issues which need some focus and need to see some progress. Example of that would be diversity. An example of that would be gender diversity, something which both within the private equity industry itself and all the companies that private equity backs, we're just now starting to measure the number of male and female employees within those businesses, the number of male and female managers, and of course one of the hot issues currently around any pay differentials or gaps, which if they're there need to be worked with and worked away over time. And I'm delighted to say that the private equity industry as a whole has woken up to that. It's now expected that portfolio companies will report the measures on gender diversity and other forms of diversity. It's step-by-step progress, but over time it leads to better decisions, better performance, more sustainable businesses, and private equity, I think, would feel a little bit proud that it's playing a part in that in small and medium-sized companies, not the big public companies. But I think equally it would be honest and say we're still some way to go.